So generally, I think it's fair to say that this year's WrestleMania was not that well received. There were some good bits, but there was quite a lot of bad bits as well, and it's not going to be an all-timer. And did you also know there's a Hulk Hogan documentary coming out? But as I say, there were some positive parts as well. The main event of night 2, obviously. The decision to have Brock Lesnar comprehensively lose to Obafemi was good. Paige's return was cool. There were some good bits, just outweighed by the bad. So no, it's not a good WrestleMania still, I don't think. But it's not a wall-to-wall stinker. But now, thanks to the good people of my Patreon, thank you Patreon people, they've decided that our next episode now is going to cover a WrestleMania definitely, possibly considered to actually be the worst WrestleMania of all time in the world. When people talk about the worst WrestleMania ever, often it's very tempting to throw out the last one we covered in this series, WrestleMania 9, because it's very bright and very garish and tacky, and it ends on a historically bad booking decision. But there's a certain other WrestleMania, one that the real ones, the connoisseurs of bad wrestling, like to throw out there as an example of a much worse WrestleMania from start to finish, an awful, plodding swamp of a WrestleMania. This is Very Weird Wrestling, and it's time to talk about WrestleMania 2. It's April 1986 and the WWF are 1 year removed from the commercial triumph that was the first ever WrestleMania, a celebrated marriage of wrestling and celebrity culture on the biggest stage that the industry had ever seen to that point. So of course, it was a bit of a no-brainer. There'd be loads of demand for a sequel the following year. But how do you top WrestleMania 1? How do you top such a success? How do you avoid that sophomore slump? Apparently, you do it by making WrestleMania 2 not just one WrestleMania, but 3 WrestleManias running back to back to back in 3 different venues in 3 different cities across the United States. Yes, WrestleMania 2 takes the form of 3 mini-shows, each containing 4 broadcasted matches each. The first part in the Nassau Coliseum in New York, the second in the Rosemont Horizon just outside of Chicago, Illinois, and the third on the West Coast, baby, the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena. Dream of California. So we're going to see not only how good WrestleMania 2 is as a whole, but we're also going to see which of the 3 venues, which of the 3 mini-shows is the best. Hell yeah! None of it's very good. There are 12 matches to get into, but the 3 headline bouts are, well, the final match in LA, the true main event of WrestleMania 2, is Hulk Hogan defending the WWF Championship against King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. The classic old school blue bar cage as well. Before that, in the Midwest, we've got the British Bulldogs trying to win the tag team titles from the heel team of Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, which is technically the final match of the Chicago portion of the show, but the most highly promoted match is a different one. That is a 20-man battle royal featuring not only wrestlers, but NFL players as well. Oh good, I'm sure that'll be clear and coherent. And the main event of the first portion of the show in the WWF's home territory, of course, of the Northeast, is a worked boxing match between Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. T. Very interesting. Sounds quite risky. Could be bad. Yes. So let's dive straight in with the New York portion of the show. And of course, 3 different locations means 3 different announce teams. So straight away in New York, we have Vince McMahon. But he can't call the show alone, you guys, so he welcomes along, in his words, America's #1 actress today. It's Susan St. James, everybody. I'm very British. I don't know who Susan St. James is. Wikipedia tells me she is most known for the sitcom Kate and Ally, where she plays Kate, and the detective series Macmillan and Wife, where she plays Wife. But we don't really need to know that. The only thing we need to know is, does Susan know wrestling? No, she doesn't. I think one of the very basic things that a good announce team must do is get across the inherent danger of pro wrestling, the dangerous situation that a babyface will find themselves in against a vicious heel. That's very basic stuff. Susan does this by repeatedly saying, and I'm trying to do an accurate level of intensity here, by repeatedly saying, uh-oh, which isn't like, oh my word, the violence on display. It's more like, I forgot that I poured my coffee earlier and now it's gone cold. Uh-oh. Susan's awful, it's not her fault. It's like getting a hamster to present Robot Wars, but someone who does turn up is the great Ray Charles, who absolutely nails his rendition of America the Beautiful once they've remembered to turn his mic up. From sea to shining sea. I'm really sorry. That was a stupid joke that me and Luke used to do. You know Luke, who would edit my weirdest episodes over on Cultaholic? We used to do that every year in the office. If we were watching WrestleMania together, we would wait for that line of shining sea. And then obviously they stopped. Now they started doing the Star Spangled Banner. It's just not quite the same. Luke does music content now, by the way, so check him out on his socials. I'll pop that up on screen now. There we go. Oh, time for the first match. Just kidding. Time for some time wasting, actually. This isn't too different from modern WrestleMania, is it? Mean Gene's looking good, and he throws to a promo from Rowdy Roddy Piper, gearing up for his boxing match against Mr. T. Piper is joined by his friend Cowboy Bob Orton, and also by real-life boxing trainer and promoter Lou Duva, a legend of the sport who's managed countless world champions, but isn't really a great promo. Like, not at all, really. It's not his fault. It's like getting a hamster to present a different robot-based UK techno games. It's like getting a hamster to present techno games. Remember techno games? Lou is really lacking in intensity, bless him, but obviously Piper isn't a legendary heel on the mic, so antagonistic. He says if Mr. T knocks him out, he won't just quit boxing, he'll quit wrestling too, and Lou is not happy at being upstage. Look at him, look at his little face. Now this new condition added to the match immediately has me concerned, because if Piper gets knocked out, he's going to retire from wrestling. Now obviously that's not going to happen, but then Mr. T's not going to lose, is he? It's in the main event of the New York portion of your show. You're not going to get the big celebrity, the hero of last year's WrestleMania. You're not going to get him to lose the match, are you? Don't worry about it, but it is disappointing what happens. Bit of casual racism from Piper to end the promo. Cowboy Bob is loving it. Yeah. Let's move very swiftly on. Finally, the first match of the night. It's Muscular Triangle Don Morocco taking on a now babyface Paul Orndorff, having seen the error of his ways after being a heel at WrestleMania 1. We absolutely stan a reformed king. I'm way too old to be saying stuff like that. And just for anybody watching, I said a reformed king with an ED on the end. That's for any of the British viewers. Just to make crystal clear, I said reformed. A reformed king. Just let's move on. This one starts off pretty hot. They trade big body slams. Oh my god, it's like WrestleMania 3, which hasn't happened yet. And I'm quite excited. It's off to a decent start. Orndorff's looking nimble as well. He applies an arm lock and Morocco tries to roll to escape, and then Orndorff rolls with him. I'm like, ooh, this is all good stuff so far. And then they work that hold for like far too long, sapping all of the momentum out of the match. Morocco finally breaks free. They spill to the outside, and they brawl to a double count-out finish. It's going to be a long event. We get a bit of a scuffle after the bell. Orndorff threatens to use not just a normal chair, but a yellow chair, which I believe deals electric damage as well as regular damage, and the whole thing is broken up. We throw to the ring, where Howard Finkel is standing by with the official announcement of the result, and he stands there and doesn't announce the result and just goes, what? And then we throw to another promo. It's Mr. T's response to Rowdy Roddy Piper's promo. Mr. T is seconded by the Haiti Kid and by legitimate boxing all-time great Smokin' Joe Frazier. And of course, fellow boxing experts like myself know that Smokin' Joe Frazier once beat Muhammad Ali and Mr. T once beat Rocky Balboa. So with their experience combined, I think Roddy's in trouble. Mr. T's very excited in this promo. He goes on and on, kind of rambles a little bit. The gist of it is, hey, I know that Rowdy Roddy Piper's going to try some dirty stuff in there, then I'm going to try some dirty tricks as well, and I'm going to fight fire with fire, and blah, blah, blah. And he rambles on, and he says, the time for talking is over, and now it's time to fight, which is lucky that he says that, because the promo goes on so long that it actually gets cut off by the ring introductions seeping through the audio for the next match. The second bout is Wildman crowd favourite babyface George the Animal Steele trying to win the IC title from now iconic, arrogant heel champion Macho Man Randy Savage. Now I'm the same as quite a lot of people out there, and Randy Savage is my favourite golden age of WWF wrestler. Interestingly, in the case of guest commentator Susan St. James, George the Animal Steele is her favourite wrestler. And that's a rogue pick, that's really out there. I have to surrender to Susan St. James in terms of hipster knowledge. I'm out here being all like, CM Punk's the best, Bryan Danielson's the best. I bet Susan St. James is like, Sangre Chicana's the best, mate. Get your knowledge up. And the reason I can tell that George is Susan's favourite wrestler is because she really puts this match over strong. She even says, like, this is my match. I need George to win this one. I hate Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm going to need George to pull out the win. And she spends the whole bout going like, come on, George. You can do it, George. And it's still annoying. Like, it's annoying commentary. But at least she cares. And as mentioned, she hates Randy Savage. She hates him because of the way he treats Miss Elizabeth. And then she says, by the way, George is totally in love with Miss Elizabeth. I'm like, wow, she's providing background storyline context and everything. More than a lot of modern commentators do, who just like shout over everything. She's doing not a good job, but she's accidentally ticking some of the boxes. And that's all we can do in this world. Anyway, the match is underway. George, as you can see, casts Expelliarmus, and Savage runs away to kill some time for a while, but then George catches him and bites his leg. And then we get the heelish tactics from Randy Savage as well, like George gets distracted by Liz on the outside, so Savage ties him up in the ropes. At one stage, George is building up a head of steam, so Savage has to scoot under the ring, come out the other side and ambush George from behind. It's all classic stuff, but it's Randy Savage, so it's done really well. More biting from George, so Savage tries to retaliate by grabbing the hair, but of course, George is bald, so that's not going to work, Savage. On commentary, Vince really breaks this spot down for us. He's like, Savage trying to grab the hair there, but of course George has no hair, apart from the hair all over his torso, but not on his head. I'm like, shut up, Vince. Feels like I'm watching the Teletubbies. Feels like I'm being explained very basic things that are in front of me. Savage grabs a bunch of flowers from ringside, hits George with them, and then gets bitten some more by George, and I'm getting the sense that this is really starting to feel like kind of a semi-comedy indie match taking place on a modern WrestleMania weekend. George gets some flower-based revenge of his own, which is a good visual, to be fair, and then we get vintage George the Animal Steel getting distracted by ripping open a turnbuckle pad to feast on the pillowy goodness within. That's just kind of what he does. It's kind of his thing. He loves it. He then rubs some of the stuff in Savage's eyes, which isn't a DQ somehow, but again, George gets distracted by Elizabeth, allowing Macho Man to come off the top with a big axe handle. Back inside the ring, George is made to look pretty strong, actually, kicking out of Savage's top rope elbow drop, but shortly afterwards, Savage gets a dirty rope-assisted pinfall win, and Susan St. James is just so crushed. Back to Mean Gene now. Turns out Gene's in Chicago. So earlier, when we went from Vince and then he threw to Gene, who then threw to Roddy Piper, that means we went from New York to Chicago to throw us back to New York. What's going on? Gene gets caught in the middle of a shoving contest between two of the competitors in the upcoming Wrestlers and NFL Players 20-man Battle Royal. Those men are Big John Studd. We know Big John Studd, of course, wrestler. And also Bill Fralick of the Atlanta Falcons. I desperately hope that I've pronounced that correctly. Now, Big John Studd, he hates NFL players, and he demonstrates the superiority of pro wrestling by just squashing a football with his bare hands. Bill Fralick could not look less intimidated if he tried. Come on, Bill! This is the wrestling business. Show a little bit. Play the game. Now, Bill gets a chance to hype the Battle Royal as well, and he says, look, this Battle Royal's coming up in like 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, and I'm going to show Big John Dud what's up. Oh, bonus points for the pun there, Bill. Really, really good stuff. He's just lied, though. The match is not in like 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. There are 4 matches until the Battle Royal. Back to New York, of course, where Vince is trying to hype the next match by talking about snakes, because the next match features Jake the Snake Roberts. And then Susan chimes in and says, how does George feel about snakes? I'm like, mate, get over it. He's lost already. He's lost. That match is over now. Susan. Damn it, Susan. You disgrace. Then I realise that Jake's opponent is also named George because it's experienced former NWA star George Wells, and that's who she was talking about, not George Steele it's George Wells. I'm really sorry, Susan. And that match is right now. Jake the Snake Roberts versus George Wells. Jake attacks George at the bell and we're off straight away. George fights bravely back and Jake Roberts does a tremendous, deliberately missed wild right hand. It's so good. Look at that. I think somewhere in Amarillo, Texas, Terry Funk just felt a strange disturbance in the force. Oh, Terry's actually on this show later on. Somewhere in Los Angeles then, Terry felt a strange disturbance in the dream of California. This match is pretty good so far. It's definitely the best one that we've seen, even though it's only been going for about a minute and a half. The brawl spills to the outside. George Wells pulls back and just goes, bam! Huge right hand to Jake Roberts. And I'm actually fired up right now. Back inside, Jake uses a leapfrog to avoid an attack from George, then tells us how smart he is, and then, of course, immediately gets knocked to the canvas. Jake Roberts is so great, man, when he's on form. And at this point in the match, I'm thinking, these guys are kind of trying to steal the show, man. Like, Jay takes a knee lift and bumps so hard he ends up in this position. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, but I didn't think it was that brutally fast. Basically what happens is Jake runs away from George for a bit, gets back in the ring, George follows him into the ring, bang, DDT straight away from Jake, 1, 2, 3, and it's over. More next time, please. 45-minute Iron Man match next time. Now, of course, we get the famous post-match bit as Jake wraps Damien the Snake around George's head and George sells it by foaming at the mouth. A bit so disturbing that I'm not going to show a screenshot of it, in fact, in case YouTube thinks that it's real. The big mark. Now we throw all the way over to Los Angeles to catch up with best friends and not at all ideological enemies, Hulk Hogan and Jesse the Body Ventura. Well, let me tell you something, Ventura, dude. King Kong Bundy's going down. It doesn't matter about Hogan's injured ribs, brother, because Hogan's going to win. He's going to do it for America. Fair enough. Wait, no, Bundy's American too. Whatever. Fine. It's the 80s. Fine. Hogan then also makes a prediction, and that really offends me, because I'm like, whoa. Are we making predictions, Hulk? Stay out of our YouTube territory. Leave the predictions alone, please, big man. Hogan's prediction concerns the boxing match between Mr. T and Roddy Piper. And of course, Hogan thinks that his best mate, Mr. T, is going to win because he fights for what he believes in, just like Hulk Hogan does, dude, and all the little Hulkamaniacs. And then Jesse Ventura gets the last word in, even though he's just the interviewer, by saying, good guys don't always come out on top. Need to work on my Ventura. I can try. Good guys don't all... No. It's almost time for the main event in the New York section of the show, and each of our main events is preceded by like a carnival of celebrities. So this is the first one of the night. We have guest ring announcer Joan Rivers. She shouts out some celebrity judges for the main event. NBA star Daryl Dawkins, jazz musician Cab Calloway, and convicted former FBI agent and one of the men behind the Watergate scandal, G. Gordon Liddy. Hooray! What? Honestly, this would be like WWE these days being involved with all kinds of shady political types, which obviously just wouldn't... We also get a huge reaction, actually, for guest timekeeper Herb, who's massively over. So I googled who he is. Apparently, he was a character at the time in a Burger King ad campaign. And the crowd, like, pop huge for him, too. Finally, it's time for the boxing, Mr. T and Roddy Piper. We get the stare down, we get the referee's instructions, and we get a little bit of a scuffle before the bell, as is tradition. But honestly, I don't really know how to recap this one very well, guys, because it's kind of doomed to be boring. Like, the secret ingredient of pro wrestling is that it's predetermined. So unlike real sports, which can sometimes be exciting but can also sometimes be boring, in wrestling, because it's scripted, you can make sure that like wild, unlikely, exciting things happen all the time. But by working a boxing match, you just get a more boring version of a boxing match because they're both clearly not really going for it. Like, Piper occasionally does something heelish here, like landing a cheap shot in the middle of a break, but they're largely just plodding around and just sort of throwing very half-hearted punches. Round one ends and like they don't stop boxing at the bell, so all the seconds have to jump in to break it up, and then they get back to their corners, and then they come out for round two, and it turns out that Piper's corner tried to cheat by applying too much Vaseline or whatever, and then the referee has to stop the fight while he removes the excess Vaseline. Ooh, thrilling. Round two resumes, and Roddy comes out swinging, relatively speaking. And all of a sudden, down goes Mr. T, down goes Clubber Lang, down goes Clubber Lang. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up, and we're running on the beach and we're best friends. Mr. T beats the referee's count, but stumbles again as the bell goes for the end of the round, and he has to be helped back to his corner, and our hero's in trouble. Now, between rounds 2 and 3, Cowboy Bob Orton strides into the middle of the ring and throws a bucket of water over Mr. T's corner. Just a reminder, Joe Frazier is in Mr. T's corner and he does nothing. If I was Mr. T, I'd be furious about that. You're one of the greatest boxers of all time. Get in there and defend me, Joe! Susan? No, Susan was right in the end, of course. Round 3, and Mr. T fights back. He fires up and he gets Piper in the corner and scores a knockdown on Piper by... I think if I had to guess at this point, Mr. T's probably quite gassed because he gets a knockdown by just slowly just throwing hooks like that. And then suddenly down goes Piper. Now Piper does beat the count, but as the fight resumes, he walks straight into a big comedy haymaker. Down goes Piper. It's the eye of the tiger. He has to roll all the way to the outside. It's all kicking off. I can't wait for this to be over. So Piper gets back in again. He actually beats the count again, and it's the end of the round. And now Piper doesn't want to come out for the start of round 4. And Mr. T's furious about this. I'm like, calm down, Mr. T. It means you'll probably win. But it turns out Piper was just stalling for time, and as Mr. T is taken back to his corner, Piper gets in the middle of the ring and throws his stool, his corner stool, at Mr. T. Like, launches it. And I don't think Mr. T is expecting it. And it could have been the single most dangerous spot of WrestleMania 2. Round 4, and they're just both tired now, trading big, slow haymakers back and forth. Can you feel the tension and the desperation of these men? Piper shoves the ref over, body slams Mr. T, and it ends, I regret to inform you, in a disqualification. All the seconds jump in, we get a big schmoz, which is eventually broken up, and T is announced as the winner via DQ. But then Piper also declares himself the winner on the outside, and that's it. That is our first main event of the evening. Still quite a long way to go. And by the way, that was the longest match of the entire event. Right, off we go to the Rosemont Horizon, where we have a new announce team, of course. Replacing Vince and Susan is Mean Gene and Gorilla Monsoon. Quite a considerable upgrade, I would suggest. So that's a positive. Maybe this is where WrestleMania 2 is really going to start to pick up some steam. But instead of just letting us enjoy a two-man booth of Mean Gene and Gorilla Monsoon, they need to be joined by a third person, and it's another celebrity, oh my god. Why, it's none other than Kathy Lee Crosby. She once portrayed Wonder Woman. There she is, Wonder Woman, with her iconic blonde hair. Now, the first match in Chicago is the only women's match of the entire event. It's Velvet McIntyre challenging for the women's title, the ladies' title, against reigning champion Fabulous Moolah. Moolah jumps Velvet at the bell, throws her around by the hair a few times, takes a few drop kicks in retaliation and a big body slam, and Kathy on commentary says, "I've never seen anything like this in my life." Yeah, you should probably listen to Susan actually, Kathy. Check out some Sangre Chicana matches. Expand your horizons, okay? Velvet misses a big splash, Moolah makes the cover. 1, 2, 3, we're out of here. Like, phew, that's the match, we're done. Turns out Velvet actually had one of her legs on the bottom rope. It was a dirty win for Moolah, but the announce team completely missed this and spent the aftermath talking about what a great and dominant champion Moolah is. Point of the match, completely missed. Well done, thanks guys. The announce team now hype the big battle royal, and Gene says to Kathy, "Kathy, you've been aligned with a football player or two. Who's going to win the match, a wrestler or an NFL star?" I'm like, Gene, you can't say things like that. Hopefully, Kathy can't actually hear what Gene says to her, because as they're trying to speak, there is nuclear heat in the background. That's because Nikolai Volkov has entered the ring for the start of the next match, and he demands that the crowd all be quiet and listen to him sing the Soviet national anthem. It's very 80s stuff. His opponent is American hero Corporal Kirshner, who might not know where the hard cam is, but he damn well knows where the Star-Spangled Banner is, baby. This match also has a stipulation. Basically, the winner gets to wave their nation's flag. I wonder who's going to win this one, guys. The Soviet takes control of the early stages of the brawl, and Corporal Kirshner allows him to do some like mid-2000s Nigel McGuinness stuff, ramming his head into the ring post. In 1986, at WrestleMania 2, are you okay? I mean, to be fair, Kirshner would go on to wrestle in like FMW and IWA Japan and stuff, so he was kind of crazy. The Corporal fires up, though, because of this, and beats down his opponent in the corner so much that the referee tries to stop him, just sends the ref flying with a back elbow because he loves America so much. Now, with the referee down, heel manager on the outside, Classy Freddie Blassie, tries to interfere, throwing his cane into the ring for Volkov to use, but Corporal Kirshner makes, in fairness, a really nice interception, bops his opponent just before the referee recovers, makes the pinfall, 1, 2, 3, America wins. He celebrates with the Star-Spangled Banner, he's waving it around, USA #1, etc. And in the Chicago portion of tonight's show, we've seen a sub 2-minute match and a sub 3-minute match so far. But don't worry, because guess what's next? The Battle Royal featuring all the NFL guys. So I'm certain things are about to improve. But before we get there, of course, more celebrities to meet, including the Where's the Beef lady. You know, from the commercial, Where's the Beef? She tries to shout her catchphrase. Huge error from the production team, who just haven't turned her mic on. You literally only had one job, but is it your fault if you are not given the means with which to achieve such a goal? It's not a very catchy saying, I suppose. You're not going to dunk on anyone on Twitter by saying that. We also have special guest referee Ed Too Tall Jones, who gets booed because he's a Dallas Cowboy, and Dick Butkus, a Chicago Bears legend, who gets a big pop, of course. And I think his name must surely be the inspiration for the name of Rocky's dog I'm bringing up Rocky once again, yes. As you can tell by now, I wish I was watching Rocky instead. Right, so the Battle Royal entrants all arrive. Many of them are NFL players. I'm not going to be able to pretend to know who they are, but there is one that I've heard of. There is one, and that is William the Refrigerator Perry, who's one of the Chicago Bears, so he gets a big reaction. He's probably the most over guy in this match, and I even have heard of him. So that must mean that he was like a big deal in his heyday. So if I didn't already know who wins this match, I would definitely have picked William the Refrigerator Perry to win. It just makes the most sense, you know, big celebrity, big star in Chicago. And that's not what happens. As for the wrestlers in this match, there's absolutely loads. I'll just list them off. Andre the Giant, the Iron Sheik, Big John Studd, as we've seen already, both members of the Killer Bees, both members of the Hart Foundation, Hillbilly Jim, Dan Spivey, Tony Atlas, King Tonga, Ted Arcidi, and major names of the past as well, Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales. Wow. We have a guest commentator for this one as well, and it makes sense because it's former pro football player and wrestler, Big Cat Ernie Ladd. And the match begins, and it's just immediately a mess. And William Perry, as suspected, is clearly the most over person in there, even if his pants keep falling down. And this match is kind of just everybody slowly grappling with each other, and then occasionally there's an elimination. But it's a world away from the more meticulously planned battle royals of the modern age. We do get a continuation of the war of words we saw earlier as Big John Studd eliminates Bill Fralick, who still doesn't seem that bothered, to be honest. And Studd also eliminates, with relative ease, the most dominant champion in the history of the WWE title, which is kind of brushed over, honestly, because it's time for the real showdown. Big John Studd versus the Fridge. John wins. Quite easily, actually. Perry's gone in an instant, and the crowd are understandably quite annoyed. But Perry's involvement is not over yet. He sticks around at ringside because he wants to shake Big John Studd's hand. Big John Studd, it turns out, is the biggest idiot in the history of wrestling heeldom because he accepts this handshake, leaning over the top rope precariously, and obviously William Perry drags him to the outside and he's eliminated. Suddenly, we are down to the final four. Andre the Giant, Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and San Francisco 49er, Russ Francis. Go on, Russ. You know what? Yeah, go on, Russ. I hope he hasn't done anything terrible. Oh my god, that's such a risky thing to say. The Hart Foundation double team Russ while Andre is tied up in the ropes and he can't do anything to help him, so Russ is eliminated. Quite a questionable moment now as Jim takes a big boot from Andre, turns himself 180 and throws himself over the top rope. It's a contrived elimination, but fair enough. And we're down to Andre versus Bret. And that sounds on paper like a difficult one to call. Who's going to win this match? Andre versus Bret, two of the biggest stars in wrestling history. Oh my word. This isn't Bret as we would later know him. This is heel mid-card tag team wrestler Bret. We know who's going to win this one. Yep, that's right. It's Andre the Giant. And the crowd are like, kinda happy about it. But honestly, not as happy as they would have been if it was William the Refrigerator Perry. But alas, it was not to be. Right, now that's over. Time to head back to New York. What? No! Yes, Susan's back along with Vince, and they interview the loser of the boxing match, Roddy Piper, but despite losing, he's very pleased with himself. The interview doesn't last very long because it features a bit more casual racism again, and we very swiftly cut back to Chicago, which honestly has me breathing a huge sigh of relief. Now, Mean Gene is interviewing one of the eliminated NFL players from the Battle Royal, Perry's teammate, fellow Chicago Bear, Jimbo Covert, and he's trying to engineer a feud with Bill Fralick because Bill eliminated Jimbo from the match. I'm like, fair play, Jimbo. What a pro. Trying to secure some future bookings, even if that's not necessarily in the booker's plans. I like it. What a worker. Covert, is that his name? Jimbo Covert. As in like covert operation. What a name. Anyway, Jimbo leaves, and then the Iron Sheik turns up to cut a promo for literally like 10 seconds about how he should have won the Battle Royal, and also shout out to my brother Nikolai Volkov, who should have won his match as well, damn it. But they're really rushing through that promo segment because finally it's time to get back to the ring for the final match of the Chicago portion of the show. Tag team title match with Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake defending against the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid. And one thing I notice as the ring announcer is making his introductions, he actually gives us a bit of a glimpse of his notes. Look at the state of that. How many things do you think were changed last minute on this show? Makes you think. The challengers are brought to the ring by two big names, actually. Legendary wrestling manager Captain Lou Albano and Ozzy Osbourne. Wow. Let's hope that they're not too paranoid about their opponent's abilities tonight and they're going to run through the champions like a crazy train. And I bet they wish it was an Iron Man stipulation. Now the match begins with some actual pro wrestling, which feels quite weird and unique because we arguably haven't seen any of that since the New York portion of the show. The Bulldogs are well in control of the match and Valentine has to tag out to his partner, who doesn't do much better really, falling victim to a big press slam from Davey Boy. The heels really can't get into this one, and I'm amazed just how much of this match goes to the babyface team, at least until Valentine drops Dynamite with a big pile driver. But Dynamite survives and retains control of the match with a low blow. What a heel. And once again, the Bulldogs are in control. Davey Boy hits his big running power slam, but Valentine kicks out. All these finishers getting kicked out of all the time. I wish it was the good old days. You damn kids. Greg the Hammer Valentine, you damn kid, you, with your flips. Now, unfortunately, we get a trope that I hate about 99% of the time I see it, as Greg Valentine breaks his own pinfall attempt, which, yes, makes sense because he's a cocky heel, but I think whenever a heel does that, if they go on to lose, it just cheapens the babyface's eventual victory, because you're basically saying, yeah, but they should have lost earlier. And indeed, the end of the match comes immediately after this, as Valentine is rammed into Dynamite Kid by Davey Boy, and Dynamite takes a crazy bump, flinging himself backwards off the apron, out of camera shot, presumably landing somewhere on the floor. Back in the ring, Davey Boy collapses on top of Valentine, 1, 2, 3, and we have new tag team champions. And in a move that the great Carl Lee would be proud of, the first people to celebrate with those belts are Captain Lou Albano and Ozzy Osbourne. Get in, lads, you've done it, you've done this, well done. The aftermath of the match is really telling as well, in terms of the WWF's priorities at this event, as Kathy joins Lou and Ozzy in the ring, and Lou gives like a fiery pro wrestling manager victory speech, and then Ozzy just gets on the mic and goes, "The British Bulldogs forever," and then we get a really hilarious smash cut to the actual winners of the match, bruised, beaten, and just kind of staying out of the way on the outside. Finally, the actual new champions are given a little bit of promo time, but only Davey Boy makes it. Dynamite Kid never even gets into frame. I don't know if he's just selling on the outside or if he's actually hurt. But yeah, only Davey Boy makes it and doesn't say much. He doesn't have... It's time to go to California. Dream of California. Just kidding. It's actually time to go back to Vince and Susan in New York. In what is, by the way, now a very empty, obviously, Nassau Coliseum. Vince asks Susan who she thinks is going to win the main event, Hogan versus King Kong Bundy, and Susan just really casually goes, yeah, it's got to be Hulk Hogan, actually. And I'm waiting for Vince to be like, damn it, Susan, just try and introduce some sort of sense of jeopardy, please, but he doesn't, and just kind of moves on. Anyway, we finally make it out west. We finally make it to LA, the city of angels. We're finally here. Look at this rogues gallery of characters we've got for an announce team. Hercules Hernandez is in the ring. He's very excited and he's taking on the Dragon, Ricky Steamboat, of course. Hercules attacks Steamboat before the bell, and the announcers that I just mentioned are clearly still making their way over to the table because the opening portion of this match just takes place in utter silence. And I sort of wish that it had stayed that way, actually, because despite the best efforts of Jesse Ventura, the other two commentators, Lord Alfred Hayes and Elvira, are just kind of talking over him constantly, and it's a complete mess. In fact, and this could be a staggering criticism, a radical thing of me to say, but I think this might be the worst commentary team of the three so far. Steamboat makes his comeback for a little bit as Elvira calls him a wimp on commentary. I'm like, oh my god, Elvira's the heel commentator. What a role they've just thrown her into, straight in the deep end. And then Hercules fires back with a Stan Hansen lariato. Hercules flies off the top rope, and I realise from the wide angle, wow, there's actually a lot more space around the ring than in the other two venues. And I get that that's probably because the main event's a steel cage match, but it kind of gives the unintentional impression that this venue is not very well attended at all. Anyway, Steamboat gets the knees up, and finally his full comeback can commence. He heads up top, hits a flying crossbody, and oh, it's not his comeback, it's the finish. 1, 2, 3, and Steamboat wins. Right, oh, right. It's not a bad match or anything, but obviously just quite short and underdeveloped. Let's see what's next. It's Adrian Adonis versus Uncle Elmer. Oh no. There's Adrian, looking good. Look, I know Adrian Adonis has a really underrated background. I know that he was regarded as a bit of a wrestler's wrestler back in the day. This is not that Adrian. This is when he was just doing the comedy stuff. Uncle Elmer, looking good too. And he's a proud uncle, I guess. And it's yet another match kickstarted by a brawl at the bell. Elmer gets the better of this brawl, lands a big right hand, and just falls over himself anyway. Yep. Yeah, this is what we're doing. I mean, fair play to Adrian, who's kind of wrestling this one like an unironic version of Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 2005. So he gets hit by Elmer and just somehow ends up in like this position. And he's basically being a pinball in there. But like, he's doing it earnestly. I mean, the following spot, Elmer then belly bounces Adonis, who somehow turns that into this position, and the heel's really working wonders for the babyface here. I hope he got some kind of bonus. Elmer tries to capitalize on the situation, but misses an immortal leg drop, and Adonis takes advantage, coming off the top rope for the 3. A bad match. Despite Adrian's best efforts, a bad match nonetheless, sadly. Time for another Hogan promo, eh? So I don't know if this is like pre-recorded or if Lord Alfred Hayes has just scampered away temporarily from the announce table, but he is the interviewer for this one. And, you know, Hogan, very bombastic. Lord Alfred Hayes, never the most bombastic, really. In his best sort of David Attenborough way, he's just kind of going, and standing with me now, Hulk Hogan. Hogan's been hearing a lot of rumours out there, dude, that his ribs are injured and he's not 100% heading into this match. Bundy, of course, injured those ribs in the build. What a dastardly heel challenger he is. But Hogan's going to fight through for all his little Hulkamania. You know all this. I know you know all this. It's classic. It's classic stuff. But that's just what it is. Let's have another match. 2 to go. From one Terry, we move to another Terry. I mentioned earlier that Terry Funk was on the show, actually, and he's teaming with his brother, Dory Jr. Horse. Yes, Horse. All right. Terry and Dory and Hoss are doing their wild Texas cowboy stuff, and they're taking on the very popular babyface duo of Tito Santana and the Junkyard Dog, and this huge entourage who just won't get out of the way for my screenshotting purposes. There we go. Much better. Terry throws some chairs around before the bell, and Hoss has to calm him down like, leave it, mate, it's not worth it, bruv. That's what they sound like in Amarillo. I don't know if it would have seemed this way at the time, but through modern eyes, this match is kind of all about Terry, actually. He's kind of stealing the show in a selfless, understated way. Like at one stage, he's the illegal man on the apron and he falls into the ring by accident while trying to interfere. The brothers get ran into each other and then he takes a hell of a clothesline to the outside. He's getting boxed up by JYD. He's everywhere and he's the glue holding this match together. And obviously every single thing he does is quite compelling in its own little way. There's a reason he's considered one of the true greats. At one stage, Dory's the legal man, and Terry gets involved again from the outside to hurt Tito Santana, and then even heel manager Jimmy Hart's just laying in some cheap shots. I'm like, damn you, Jimmy. Oh yeah, Jimmy Hart's managing the heels in this one, by the way. I didn't bother mentioning it because if you were a heel in 1986, chances are you're probably going to be managed by Jimmy Hart or Johnny Valiant. Jimmy Hart was managing Adrian Adonis in the other match before, and I didn't mention it. Johnny Valiant was managing Greg Valentine and Bruce Beefcake in the tag match in Chicago. I didn't mention that one either, because it doesn't matter. No, it does. I'm really sorry. Back in the ring, Terry hits an immortal leg drop of his own, taking a leaf out the book of his mentor and idol, Uncle Elmer. After a bit of a prolonged struggle, Tito finally gets the hot tag to Junkyard Dog, who runs wild with big headbutts, and Terry is sent to the outside. And the Junkyard Dog follows him out there and slams him onto a row of chairs, and as all the chairs collapse and Terry's toppled onto the floor, he pulls a table down on top of him to kind of maximise the visual impact. It's just the little things, as we all know. Now at this stage, Junkyard Dog is on an absolute roll, so much so that he even slaps Jimmy Hart off the apron, but the Mouth of the South gets revenge, throwing Terry his megaphone with the ref distracted, and JYD gets clocked in the head with it, and that's enough for the heels to get the win. The bad guys are all beat up and exhausted, but they are victorious, and they celebrate on the outside. Wow, look at Jimmy Hart without his sunglasses on. Honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, who the hell's that guy? Now, the main event is next, but they need to kill some time while they set up the steel cage and everything. So Jesse Ventura and Elvira just have a bit of a chat at the announce table. And Jesse's like, does this cage look... Doesn't work, I can't do it. Jesse's like, does the cage look like your house, Elvira? And Elvira goes, maybe like one of the rooms in my house. I'm like, oh, flex on him, Elvira. So much vampire money. We also kill more time with another Hogan segment. This one's definitely a pre-tape, as we know, because Mean Gene's actually in Chicago. And this takes place in Hogan's private gym. Hogan's just doing multiple deadlifts under the supervision of not only Hillbilly Jim, but a professional trainer as well. And the trainer tells Mean Gene that he doesn't think Hogan should be in this match. Not only are his ribs banged up, but his back is injured as well. And obviously the trainer's a Hulkamaniac. Of course he is. Hogan tells us what I feel like we've already heard him say maybe twice already in the event so far. Just basically says, you know what, Gene, I might be injured in my ribs and my back, brother, but I'm going to do it for all the Hulkamaniacs. I'm going to defend my title, brother. And then things get taken to a ludicrous extreme as Hogan puts a huge dumbbell around his neck, just starts nailing pull-ups, like bang, bang, and he's like straining and hurt, but he's doing it for Hulkamania. And Gene's like, good God, be careful, man. It's so stupid. Time for a heel promo now, as Jesse is with King Kong Bundy and his manager, the legendary Bobby the Brain Heenan. And this is much more calm than Hogan's heroic deadlifting pull-up based performance against doctor's orders. This is basically just Bundy and Heenan saying, we're very confident because Hogan's really injured, and, you know, look at Bundy, look at the size of him, and he's going to win, and then the pair of us are going to go out and party in LA. Dream of Cali. Well, that song hadn't came out yet. And we're still killing time because then we throw to Elvira, who's been kind of forced to do the next link because Jesse's just been interviewing the heels and Lord Alfred Hayes is God knows where. And Elvira kind of stumbles her way through. She does okay, given the fact that it's not her job. And then she throws us back to New York with Vince and Susan. No! Vince is like, well, you know, Susan, could we see Hulkamania replaced by Bundy Mania? And Susan, once again, is a master of removing all suspense from the equation, just going, nah, never going to happen. Hulk Hogan is definitely going to win. Finally, we've made it, guys. It's finally time for the main event of the show. Just kidding, more celebrities actually. Bobby Lasorda, manager of the LA Dodgers, is the guest ring announcer, and teenage acting star Ricky Schroeder is the timekeeper, looking a bit like a real young Tony Schiavone actually, and then not teenage acting star Robert Conrad is the guest outside referee. At last, the actual wrestlers arrive. And Hogan gets on the cage and he's stood atop the cage while he's ripping his shirt off and everyone's going wild. And Susan's right, you know, why bother pretending? He's got this in the bag. The weird thing about the main event of WrestleMania 2 is, right, it's actually way more conventional than the main event of WrestleMania 1, which was a tag team match, no title on the line, and it had celebrity involvement. Whereas the WrestleMania 2 main event could not be more straightforward. Yes, it's got the steel cage stipulation, but it's got such a clear face-heel dynamic, and it's got such a clear, simple storyline. The champion, the hero, is beaten up going in. Can the dastardly heel and his dastardly manager take advantage? And therefore, the match follows a very expected, but undeniably very effective pattern. Hogan takes control early on because he's so brave and so strong and the better wrestler, but then Bundy takes control himself by exploiting Hogan's injuries. Bundy tries to leave through the door, which reminds me in very timely fashion that escape rules are turned on for this one, but Hogan manages to stop him and Bundy doesn't take too kindly to this at all, ripping Hogan's bandages off and using them to choke him. And then, of course, Hogan makes his heroic comeback, throwing Bundy into the cage wall several times and actually busting him open, in fact. He goes for a WrestleMania 2 body slam, but Bundy's too heavy and squashes the champion. I wish it was WrestleMania 3. Bundy splashes Hogan in the corner and then hits a big standing splash to a prone Hogan, and I'm like, oh my God, Hulkamania is in danger of ending. It's not really, it's 1986. But it might have felt scary at the time, though. Hogan gets splashed in the corner again, but this one he no-sells, and it's time for the famous hulking up. He nails that big body slam, hits the leg drop, which Lord Alfred Hayes on commentary calls a knee drop. I'm like, can you do anything right, Lord Alfred Hayes? That's not a knee drop, that is an Uncle Elmer leg drop, and you well know it. Bundy summons enough strength to reach up and grab Hogan as he climbs the cage, but he gets kicked back down to the canvas, and the Hulkster makes all of our dreams come true, climbing to the outside and retaining the WWF title. Hogan celebrates by trapping Bobby Heenan in the cage with him once Bundy's moved to the outside, so now Heenan's stuck in the cage with Hogan. Hogan lands a few blows on the Weasley heel manager, and it's all a big happy ending. Hooray! You know, Heenan's got his comeuppance, and that would have been more effective if we'd seen more of Heenan on this show, rather than, like, Susan. Heenan's left all twisted up as Hogan celebrates for ages and ages. I'm like, yeah, man, we get it. Can we move to the end of the show now? But no, we need to throw back to Vince and Susan for a wrap-up back in New York City. Mercifully, they don't say anything of value. Nothing that I need to report to you. They're just like, wow, what a show it was. And finally, we've made it. Finally, we've done it. The show is over. WrestleMania 2 is in the can. And Hulkamania lives on. So there we have it. WrestleMania 2, often cited as the worst Mania of all time. But how accurate is that? Honestly, I think it has quite a strong case for being the worst Mania of all time. Yes, the main event was pretty much a success, but there was so much bad elsewhere on the show. Very short matches that should have got more time, or just bad matches with stupid finishes. But I think the main thing that really dragged down my enjoyment of the show was that it was such a tedious viewing experience. The switching between all three venues, the multitude of different celebrities and announce teams and all these different characters that we're constantly having to get accustomed to and then switching between them back and forth, it really was not a successful format. And it makes it, I think, a very, very difficult show to watch, even compared to similar shows from around the same time with similar production values. That's not the issue. It's very much the format of the show. And if you were at the New York or Chicago parts of the event, you really didn't get lucky, because the final third in LA was clearly the best part of the night. An effective main event, a decent tag team match as well, backing it up, rather than like a rubbish work boxing match in New York or a celebrity bloated battle royal in Chicago. And so the moral of the story, I believe, is that, as always, California comes out on top. Dream of California, remix, California, dun, dun, knows how to par, dun, 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 California, how to par. Thank you once again to the wonderful people on my Patreon for voting for this one. Thank you, Patreon people, very much. It was a tricky one, actually, that you dealt me there. I've been Jack the Jobber. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do like, share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed it and all those good things. And yeah, not much more to say. WrestleMania 2, not an enjoyable time, but I hope you've had an enjoyable time watching this video. Thanks very much for watching. It means the world as always, and I'll see you very soon.